you know, is grappling, actually issues that are grappling us, and not just teenagers, not just the youth, but also adults. But today we have a keen focus in this particular segment on the teenagers. Let's have that a real talk. And thank you so much for your social media feedback. We did post this question on social media and the views are overwhelming. So Rita, take it away.
Now, as Mala has said, we're not sugarcoating this morning, because this is a conversation that a number of people have had. The things they talk about, some of them are myths. The things they are talking about are leading people down a path that they shouldn't be going. And today, we're going to be clearing the air in regards to that. And as I had mentioned earlier, this week, a story did break in the Daily Monitor about sex workers in Chotara district that actually disclosed receiving cases of teenagers demanding for unprotected sex. Now, some of these sex workers also do share the fact that they tell these teenagers, we're HIV positive. Some of them are not taking their antiretroviral drugs on a daily because they have busy schedules. And in regard to that, a session is just 5,000 Uganda shillings. Now, we are in a country where 70% of Uganda's population is made up of the youth. Now, we have just one of them, just a representative. But if you're a youth out there and you'd like to be a part of this, use and tag at NTV Uganda on Twitter. You could simply also use the hashtag morning at NTV, or on Facebook, go to our Facebook page. Now we're joined by Kevin Kimda. You're most welcome, Kevin.
Thank you very much.
And he is 19 years of age. So we're going to be having a conversation like sisters, because we're also 19. Actually, I'm 17 this morning. Okay? I am 17.
Wish.
No, I am 17. Okay? But anyway, so Kevin,
Yes.
let's talk about sex. The things you have heard about sex.
The things I've heard about sex. Well, mostly it's very hard to talk about sex when you're a teenager, because they try to refrain us from sex education, because they think when we know, then we shall indulge. But that is not the actual reason. When we know, that's when we can try to prevent and abstain, so that we do not get those adverse effects that come with sex. And most teenagers do sex when they do not know how to actually go on with the process. They do not know what measures to use to protect themselves, so they end up contracting certain STDs, STIs, not to mention but a few that really destroy their sexual lives and reproductive systems. So it leaves them with the damage.
So what have you heard about sex in these conversations that you might have had with your fellow teenagers? You don't have to say their names. But what have you had?
Most teenagers think of sex as, in this particular age that we are right now, most teenagers think of sex as an experience that they have to do in order to prepare for, I don't know, something in future. Yeah, they think of it as an obligation, maybe, that they have to do it now, so that when they get there, they are
so they're practicing.
It's like that.
Okay. So in regards to this practice, have you heard of protected sex? Have you heard of unprotected sex?
Yes, I have. Protected sex, that is condoms, condom use, and there is a procedure, a particular proper procedure in which to use a condom, which is, if not followed, it can lead to some other effects. Then unprotected sex is the one where a person just goes live, no condom, and they just proceed with the sex.
All right, Kevin, it seems like you know quite a bit with regards to this particular subject. And my question to you would be, what was your first introduction to the sexual conversation, and at what age was it at?
Me personally, my first introduction was in my primary.
Whoa.
Yeah. We used to, the classes, I think P6, where you learn about the reproductive system and all that. Yes, that was my first introduction to sex and related issues about sex. Yeah, and well, my first introduction was, I found it kind of, I don't know, interesting, weird. At the same time, it's it's a very disturbing thing at first. But when you get to know more and get to learn how to do the necessary when it comes to the sex issue, it becomes easier.
Okay.
Yeah.
In regards to what your friends, now that was school, what have you had conversations with your friends about sex? What has been that bit of the sex conversation that you've actually had?
That bit of the sex conversation, well, my friends, they
Clear his throat, clear his throat.
okay, that bit of the sex conversation, teenagers usually, they get into sex like a lot, mostly from the age of 16, 16 and above. They are very sexually active.
Okay.
Yeah, very sexually active. Then they do not really know how to go on with this, with sex.
Right.
Yeah, they usually tend to ask like, how do you even start? Like, what do you do? Are you supposed to use a condom? Are you supposed not to use a condom? Like, most of them do not know.
So what you're saying is that pretty much the sexual orientation of most young people, teenagers so to speak, comes from having conversations amongst their peers. The introduction was at P6, thanks to the curriculum, where you're taught the anatomy of the human body, and that's it. You're dropped in the ocean to figure out for yourselves. No sexual education coming from school or from parents, so to speak, like rigorous education.
Yeah, unfortunately no, because I don't know, parents usually, I don't know if they find it embarrassing to talk about sex. I really don't know. But at school, the teachers try.
Okay.
They try to, you know, guide you, put you in the right line, talk about the effects, the do's and do nots. But mostly, parents also do their part, but parents usually come in like at that stage when you're like in high school.
When you know a lot already.
When you know a lot already, then they try to tell you what you know is not what you know. You should do this and this. And mostly at that age, if a young person has learned something and then you tell them don't do this, yet they have been doing it for quite some time, they really tend not to heed. They tend not to mind. Yeah.
Okay, so as we talk about it and as we wrap up the conversation, before we go to the question that was asked on social media, which is, condoms remain a major contributor to the reduction of HIV infections. So why then are some people willing to not use them and put themselves at risk of unprotected sex? Now, you mentioned one thing, which is people start having it at 16 now.
Or earlier.
Or earlier.
Yeah.
But is this with one partner? Because that's also something. So is it because you're dating someone and then maybe, well, what we call boyfriend, girlfriend at that point in time, and you end up sleeping with this person? Or is it because there's that person and I'm here and, okay, let's do this?
Yeah, most times it's because of there's that person and I'm here. And yeah, let's do this. Because the feelings of a teenager are like, they're at that stage where they are boiling up. And when they get to that point where they cannot control their feelings, then they just make rash decisions. Yeah, and they just decide to go on with it.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Of course, based on what we posted on social media, and the trend has been using a condom is no longer cool or not preferred by a majority. What are the teenagers saying?
Well, most teenagers are saying the same thing, but I don't know what to mean. Most teenagers are saying, yeah, using a condom is not actually that cool, but then they also fear very much pregnancy. But yeah, they also fear very much pregnancy, like to get their partner pregnant. So they actually use the condom, but most of them do not use it the right way. Yeah, they need that education to be able to use it the right way.
And speaking of the fear of pregnancy, between the fear of pregnancy and the fear of contracting infections with regards to having unprotected sex, which of the two do teenagers fear the most?
For the youth, I think it's pregnancy.
There you have it. A number of youth believe and think that you would rather have an STI, which is a sexually transmitted infection, or a sexually transmitted disease, than have a pregnancy or a child. Anyway, in regards to that conversation, we're taking you to David Rukasi, who is actually going to be sharing with us our social media comments that came through in regards to that question. And we'll be having experts coming through to also talk about this, because we have the side of the teenager, we have the parents who are scared of talking about it, but this is actually a real thing. So we're going to be discussing that as well.
Thank you so much,
David.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Just high-five this. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
A very interesting topic that we're having today morning at NTV. If you want to be part of it, you can just go to our social media platforms. The hashtag is morning at NTV. Very interesting thoughts, like I said. Let's go through some of them. Ray Kembabazi says, some people no longer fear HIV infection. They would rather enjoy today's pleasure rather than wait for their uncertain, bright future. The next comment comes in from Alex Spacey. There's been an invention of condoms that change color once inside a medium that contains STDs. They should be introduced in the country to deter growing HIV infections. The other one comes in from Chamanywa Brian, who says condoms are too tight. You see, that's that's a very interesting thought, but their sizes, my friend. At Zarirwe Cosma says people have a right to choose the death they want to die of. They are aware of AIDS, but they go on to have unprotected sex. Leave them. That's what they like. They want to die of AIDS. Unfortunately, we're not going to be like you and just leave them. But Paul Bwengabaria says some ladies encourage live sex so they could get a child to lock down the man. Others, it's sheer carelessness, especially when under the influence of an external substance. And he goes ahead to mention just two: alcohol and weed. Havi, you say condoms are becoming expensive. Simanyi government kebala. Expensive. Okay. I have adopted another strategy: no sex before blood samples. This is coming in from Semugabi Robert of Facebook. Bwambale Yonasim says nowadays condoms are so expensive. Costs between 2,000 to 3,000 Ghana shillings. In Ibanda town, Ibanda district, which youth can't afford unless they go to health centers for free condoms. So let manufacturers reduce the price. So the conversation we're having today, we're looking at the youth and why they're involving themselves more in unprotected sex. Is it because they are unaware? Is it because the condoms are expensive, like some of the comments that we have read here today? Or is it because they don't have enough information? That's the discussion we're having today on Morning at NTV. Let me hand you back to Rita and Marla so that they can take you through. Now we have the experts. They can tell us. They have dealt with these teenagers. They know how they think, and they know maybe a solution or two that could help us. Morning at NTV continues. Good morning.
Thank you so much, David. Now, in regards to that, the comments there just have me shaking my head. But I do not think I'm the only one who is saying, how is this even possible? Condoms are expensive. Well, we continue the conversation. We had Kevin in here. He was a teenager. He is a teenager who has shared the fact that they fear pregnancy more than they actually fear contracting STIs, more than they actually fear contracting sexually transmitted diseases. Now we're joined by Dr. Vincent Karuhanga. You're most welcome.
Thank you very much.
He's a general practitioner. And we're also joined by Mr. Thembo Joshua Kusumali, who is, by the way, dealing with teenagers on a day-to-day basis at the Naguru Teenage Information and Health Center. Now, in regards to that, Dr. and Mr. Joshua, we've heard what the teenagers had to say. You've also had the comments that have come through. What do you say of this before we even delve into it? We're in a society, unprotected sex.
Very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. And actually, it is just the tip of an iceberg, because what is happening out there is just too much. Because you'll find that even 5-year-olds already know about sex. 6-year-olds already know. As long as a kid is tall enough to look through the keyhole, that child is already aware of what is happening. And of course, our society now, we have very big problems. People are staying so many, even you heard of police. You find that about the whole family staying in one room. Wife husband and children staying in one room. You can always wait for the kids to sleep, but they can pretend to be asleep. And they will wonder what is happening, and they will try out what they see, because children always want to learn, and once they see what their parents are doing, they will also try it out. And you know, the biggest issue is that today even a virgin may have HIV infection.
Can you imagine? Which is a very sad thing. Now, for a specialist who is actually dealing with sexual and reproductive health and communications within the Naguru Teenage and Information Health Center, let's talk about what you're telling these teenagers, or what the teenagers' thoughts are in regard to this.
Yes, thank you so much. Good morning, viewers. Not far from what Dr. said, I think the society we're in today, we can no longer hide away from some of these things. We're in the 21st century, and there is so much information all over the internet, and there's so many sources of information. And sex is no longer something we can hide about, and young people are interfacing with this information all over the place. However, when it comes to the issue of saying young people are more afraid of pregnancy than HIV, AIDS, and the STIs, I believe that with what I'm seeing and what we're experiencing at the Teenage Center, that it's just an issue of information gap. Because when a young person is growing, or a teenager in this case, because we're talking about teenager is 13 to 19 years.
Right.
That is a very, very interesting stage. You know, 13 to 19, they are transitioning. They've been children, and now they're now teenagers. The body is developing, the breasts are coming out, the boys' voices are getting deeper. So there's a lot that is happening to them, and they're trying to experience so much. And if you have realized, also their behavior changes. So to this teenager here, getting this pregnancy, you know, the stomach coming out, they look at it as, man, how will they look at me? My stomach going up there. So we see all these things happening to so many other external factors that will lead this teenager to arrive at such a statement and say, no, I'd rather have HIV, because HIV, maybe you may not notice it so easily, and because today we have drugs also that are doing a good job.
Whoa. What drugs are these?
No, the HIV drugs.
Right.
Yeah, it's not like it was in previous.
So they say it's fine, I can have HIV, but I'll still live on ARVs around.
Yes, but like I've said, it's just an issue of the age, of the age, and then the information gap.
You mentioned the information gap, and the question has been, is it that the parents are failing, or we need to expedite the introduction of sexuality education in the curriculum? Dr. Karuhanga.
You see, once there is breakdown of a word family, such problems come up. Now, a family, an African family, is not necessarily husband, wife, and children. Even relatives, friends, and in-laws become part of the family. We used to have sengas, those are paternal aunts. We used to have uncles who would actually talk to these kids at par. But now imagine that the family has broken up. The parents, some parents live in Kampala, others live in the village, some are driving, others are not driving. You are not going to take your child to a woman who is soiled up from head to toe to talk to your child, and your child thinks that this person is talking sense. They will not believe that. So as long as the word family has no meaning, there will be a very, very big problem. Because these are the people who easily disseminate information. You can talk about health, the sex education. Sex education will be okay. And by the way, by the time a kid these days reaches 10 years, it may be knowing more than you think it knows.
So at what age is it appropriate to start these conversations with the children?
Well, any age is appropriate, but the issue is that do we really need sex education, for example, in schools? Do we need sex education in homes? Everything should start in the homes. Let us restore our word family, so that these kids are taught at home. And of course, to add on, then schools will know what to talk to these kids. And the religious leaders should also be involved.
Right.
A long time ago, for us to use, even thinking about a girl, you go and tell your priest, you know, I have sinned. But today, even when a kid plays sex, it will not go to confess that it has sinned. Sees it as normal. Yes.
So in the old days, you used to see a girl and you flee.
You are going to be burnt in hell.
Well, let's talk about one thing that you actually raised, Dr. Karuhanga, which is very interesting. That what we have seen happening over the years is that things have changed in regards to the conversation about sex.
Yeah.
If anyone remembers the ABCs, there was when it was
Abstain.
abstinence. Yes?
Be faithful.
Be faithful.
Use condoms.
Now, the C is what is focused on, but even the C has failed. Look at Chotera, for example. They are teenagers.
C is part of BBC, body-to-body contact.
So now, BBC body contact in this regard, Dr. Karuhanga. Let's talk about unprotected sex. That all these youth, because as it seems and as it stands, from what the report did come out with, teenagers, whether you tell them you have HIV and AIDS from these sex workers, they still say, for 5,000, it's okay, we'll get this HIV and AIDS.
But what is sex anyway?
Exactly.
Today, the word sex has a lot of meanings, and I don't know which is a private part anyway. Is it the mouth? Is it another area? Because sex, they will tell you about oral sex.
Right.
They will tell you about anal sex. They will tell you about vaginal sex. But you see, now, how are you going to protect oral sex? People think oral sex is safe. And now we are seeing levels of cancer of the throat going up.
Tell us more about that.
Why? Because of oral sex. Because people think that oral sex is safe and therefore shouldn't be protected. Okay, we have dental dams. You can cut a condom and use it. Or one can use flavored condoms. I don't know which flavor women like. Most people tell us that pineapple is best. So now those flavored condoms, they are nowhere to be seen. They are not there. So they are, you can't even go to a pharmacy looking for condoms for oral sex. They will just look at you and wonder, because this is one thing you are trying to hide that you are doing. So that is a very big issue. People are going for anal sex. Anal sex is traumatic. I mean, it is easy to injure yourselves and expose blood. Okay, it's true that germs, especially human papillomavirus, which causes cancer of the cervix, and hepatitis germ, and of course HIV germ, they easily cross a membrane which we have in the mouth, which we have in the vaginal canal, which we have in the anal canal. They can easily cross. But once there is bleeding, because there is no proper lubrication, and after all, people are even increasing lubrication by using oil-based lubricants instead of using the water-based lubricants. The water-based lubricants may not damage condoms, but the oil-based will damage the condoms. So it's a very, very big problem. People have to know that all types of sex have to be protected if they have to be done.
How do you protect oral sex then?
Yes, there are condoms which men can put on their organs. Then they can cut out a condom. Let me say they cut out a rectangle and put it on the mouth as a dental dam.
Yes. As you can see,
yes, you don't have to go looking for
sophisticated protection.
Yes, you can cut the condom itself and use it.
Just to bring Mr. Joshua into this conversation now, there are all these things that Dr. Karuhanga has mentioned, but for a viewer who's watching, you're saying, what? That is possible? That is there? It's the first time you're hearing of it. But what do the teenagers tell you? You don't have to say their names, but in regards to what are their conversations centered around unprotected sex?
Yes, there's one thing about these young people, like I have said, that as they grow up, this age, I think earlier I had in the conversation, I think the one you had with the young person, that by the age of 16, these young people are already having sex. And in this age bracket, there's so much desire to explore. The body is on fire. Right. There's that push external from the society, from the peers. You know, even at school, you remember when you're in high school, I think they say, hey, you're not done this thing. You're not man enough. You're not girl enough. So there are all these pressures. So what's happening? Then the unprotected sex issue coming in here. The knowledge and information gap. You know, one thing we emphasize at the center with the young people, we are emphasizing the issue of changing behavior. Yes, because the whole issue is about behavior. We may not do so much to influence what is happening in the space and around us, but if you give this person the right information, the age-appropriate information. Yes, someone was asking you. I think you asked doctor at what time then do these people start sex or knowing about sex, and we're saying let's give them the right information. Yeah, at every stage. Yes, this one is 10 to 14. Give them the information they need. Of 13 to 19, give them the information they need, or then 20, 24 and onwards, because there's a lot of pressures around them. So what is pushing them then into this behavior of unprotected sex? It's just that lack of knowledge of what may actually happen.
Speaking of lack of knowledge, and I'll need your views on this as well. When you posted this on social media, of course, David Rukasi sampled some of the views. Them that are responding are actually not teenagers, they're adults, and the majority are saying that, you know what, in this day and age, it's cool and okay and actually more to engage without using condoms. And so if that perception is actually coming out of grown-up people, what more is happening to the teenagers then? Where is this mindset coming from? And
good one. That's a perception in society, you know, that if I have sex without a condom, maybe it's more fun. You know, when we were growing up, we had all these stories. That when some women actually don't want the condoms themselves, they say, the condom actually does this to my body. I don't want the condom. It does this and that. But the users, these men, young men and the women, even these old ones who are commenting, they forget the risk that comes with having sex without condom. That's what the doctor is telling us, you know. So the more they run away from the fact, because they are looking at the fun bit of it, but what is the after effect? And that is why we are having all these issues coming up, like doctor is telling us. You know, HIV has become an issue now. We're having so many young people coming to a teenage center with STIs.
Doctor, where is this perception coming from? I thought those days of preaching ABCs were so strong. Now we are, instead of getting better, we're going back.
Society has changed. And like he says, this is the 21st century. You find that the way we are brought up today, you know, the way we used to be brought up, we are being brought up by house girls. The mother is not there, the father is not there. Who is going to teach you the values of a family, or values of sex, and other values? The house girl, the house boy. And this is why we are going wrong. A long time ago, women would remain at home and teach the children the values, but now they are also working. In fact, some women even come in later than the husbands. So they just come to sleep, and the kids don't see them. The house girls have become aunties, and eventually some of them have even played sex with these kids. So you can see what is happening. Nobody wants to become a house girl. These people are looking for a living. So it is a last resort. So they can't, not all of them, therefore, will have the behavior that is behavior which can bring up any child very well. No, no, it's a very big problem.
Okay.
As long as we don't stay with our children and teach them the values which we require to teach them, we are in trouble.
As we continue to speak about the fact that we are now in trouble, Dr. Karuhanga, and I'll also ask you, Mr. Joshua, and this is one thing that a number of people shy away from, and they're saying, no, it should not happen. The C in ABC is what is the main thing right here. Could we and should we consider having these condoms in a number of places where teenagers go, that at least they have access to them? Because if we're hearing people saying it's expensive for them to buy a condom, someone saying 3,000 is too much, you know, should we avail them with the condoms? That at least they cannot say they couldn't afford them. If they're going to engage in this, if you have done all that you can to educate this child about sex, but the world continues to be going down day by day, should we avail condoms to these teenagers?
Okay, maybe to come in there. This is something that we have been talking about all this time. The issue of availing what we call youth-friendly services. One of the problems, actually, I was reading this report just this morning, and it was produced by the National Population Council, Uganda Demographic Roadmap. They tell you that one of the reasons why we are having high teenage pregnancy in Uganda is this limited access to youth-friendly services, sexual activity services for the young people. You go to health facilities outside Kampala, because in Central Region, at least we are doing something. Something is going on. KCA facilities, at least there are youth corners almost in every facility, and Naguru and other stakeholders are supporting to make sure that young people have access to the services. But you go out of the Central Region, you get facilities and there are no youth-friendly services. Let me tell you something about young people. Young people want to go to a place where they're going to find health workers or people who are close, who are peers to them.
Right.
They don't want to go for health service and they find someone who looks like their grandmother. Then they will fear to get the condom. You understand? They may find the condom. You may actually have the condom dispensers at the entry of the hospital. But when the young person comes and the first health worker they are seeing is the other nurse, you know those nurses, they are seniors. Say, oh, this looks like my mother. The young person is going to go out. And remember, by the time the young person comes for that service, it means there's something. Maybe he has already talked to the girlfriend and the girlfriend is waiting for him somewhere. You know, they are having something is going to happen. So we need to make sure the young people are accessing these services. The same thing we've been pushing with the government. We hosted members of parliament on Tuesday, and we were telling them that let's allocate money, let's allocate resources, let's make sure our public health facilities are youth-friendly, because young people speak to fellow young people. Just like you had Kevin speaking here, I'm sure many young people who have watched him speak are going to believe so much in what he has said, because the peer approach has been tested to be one of the best. You bring Dr. Karuhanga to speak to teenagers, I'm telling you, out of 100, only 20 will take what he has said. But bring Kevin to speak to them, they will all agree to Kevin.
So you say empower the teenager, pick a teenager, empower them, and let them be the ones that go and have the conversation with their fellow youth.
Yes.
Because I know that there are these perceptions, this whole thing of unprotected sex, and how they say that women are now the ones who are saying, from one of the comments that was on Facebook, that women are the ones who are actually pushing for this. Is it because the women are having a certain type of conversation among themselves?
No, I think many people here think if a man uses a condom, that man is kind of saying that you are not safe. So if you say, no, you don't have to use a condom, then that means I'm safe. When HIV started, it was called slim, and people who had it used to be slim fit, or slim and fit. So because they were slim, people were rumored to be taking things as diverse as food meant for pigs, so that they don't look like they have slim. So now people who are taking antiretrovirals don't even look sick. They look healthier than those who are actually not taking them. So because of that, now people have a way now of saying many people are safe, and therefore if you are going to use a condom, then you are saying that I'm not safe. But the issue is that we require to routinely check, because the eyes are not good enough to tell you that one has HIV or not, one has hepatitis B or not,
right,
one has a human papilloma virus or not. And now the emerging problem of human papilloma virus, which causes venereal warts and cancers, it's a very big problem, and it's one thing we don't check. People will go to hospitals if they are going to engage sexually and check for the so-called STDs, which is they call syphilis, gonorrhea, and then HIV, hepatitis B, but they leave out human papilloma virus. Okay, checking for human papilloma virus is very expensive. So maybe that's why they leave it out. But people have to know that it is one of the very dangerous viruses, and it is also sexually transmitted. Unfortunately, the immunization which is taking place, I think, for the young people, it's for girls between 9 and 13 years.
Right.
Yes. Because these will not have played sex yet, and we are immunizing against 16 human papilloma virus 16 and 18. In other countries, they are immunizing against 9 types. Those which
HPV.
Yes.
Right.
Those which cause cervical cancer, those ones which cause cancer of the throat, those ones which cause cancer of the penis, those which cause anal cancer, those which cause swellings, which we call venereal warts.
So these vaccines actually do work?
Yeah, they work.
Let me ask you this as you come to a close. Of course, your last remarks on this. We know that the government and even the UN has this 1990 strategy that by 2030 at least we need to have, achieved that threshold with regards to fighting HIV and AIDS. Yeah. With this reality on the ground, and the perceptions that are not just amongst the young people, the teenagers and the adults, are we still on the right track? Can we achieve this target?
I think we are on the right track.
Okay.
And especially through people having treatment once they are discovered to be having HIV. Namibia is doing very well, by the way.
Okay.
What Namibia is doing is testing the people and giving them drugs once they are found to be HIV positive. But here, you test a person and you don't give drugs.
So we need to.
So that person will not want to be tested.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it is very, very important for people to be tested with the knowledge that if they are found positive, then they will be given drugs. And by the time they leave, they will know that they are not going to slim down and other people look at them and say that one is sick. Or not, because it involves a lot of money getting this treatment if it is private.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Karuhanga, and also thank you so much, Mr. Timbo Joshua, for joining us this morning to talk about a conversation and things that a number of people can't even say at home, like the word sex. Yet it holds so much weight with the fact that we have now learned from a teenager who joined us this morning that they're more afraid of pregnancy than they are of actually always sexually transmitted infections and diseases. As it stands from our conversation this morning, if you're having unprotected sex, you could be exposing yourself to throat cancer, herpes, HIV, the venereal warts, and a number of other cancers plus HPV as well. So if you have been having it, perhaps you should go and get tested. If you have not, if you plan on as a parent, I think you should have the conversation with your children now. Morning at NTV does continue.
You're watching Morning at NTV.